listen to me. If you're standing at the door of something that already broke you, this is your moment. That urge to go back, that pull in your chest, it's not love. It's familiarity wearing a disguise. Here's the truth we don't say out loud. Toxic love doesn't end with screaming. It ends with you doubting your worth. It ends with you explaining pain away. It ends with you shrinking, quieting, accommodating, surviving instead of living. I want you to hear this clearly. Love is not anxiety dressed up as passion. Love does not keep you in a constant state of fear, guessing, or self-abandonment. If you have to keep convincing yourself it wasn't that bad, it was. We don't go back because it was good. We go back because it was familiar. Because our nervous system learned chaos and mistook it for connection. And let me say this gently but firmly. Chemistry is not character. Intensity is not intimacy. And a longing is not safety. When you go back to toxic love, you don't just return to a person, you return to a version of yourself who had to settle for crumbs. You return to the nights you cried alone. You return to the silence where your needs went to disappear. This isn't about strength or weakness. It's about courage. And courage sometimes looks like staying gone, even when your heart begs you to turn around. Pause here. Breathe. This moment matters because choosing not to go back is the first act of coming home to yourself. Let me tell you something that surprises people. Leaving toxic love often hurts more than staying in it, not because it was healthy, but because it trained your nervous system to survive on unpredictability. Your body learned the rhythm of hope and disappointment, the highs that felt euphoric, the lows that left you empty. And somewhere along the way, your brain confused relief with love. That's trauma bonding. It's not romance. It's your system clinging to what it knows, even when what it knows is pain. You didn't stay because you were weak. You stayed because you were human. And humans are wired for connection, not clarity under threat. Toxic love teaches you to earn affection, to over-explain, to walk on emotional eggshells while calling it compromise. And when you finally step away, your body panics. Not because you made the wrong choice, but because chaos felt normal and calm feels unfamiliar. So when you miss them, that doesn't mean they were right for you. It means your nervous system is detoxing. Grief doesn't only show up for healthy relationships. You grieve the fantasy, the potential, the version of them you kept hoping would finally choose you. And here's the hardest truth. You can miss someone and still know they were unsafe. Missing is not a mandate to return. Pain is not proof of love. Healing doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels like withdrawal, like silence that's too loud, like space that exposes all the places you were abandoning yourself just to stay connected. But this discomfort, it's not danger. It's your system relearning what peace feels like. And that's not something you run from. That's something you stay for. Here's a question I want you to sit with. What did you have to give up to stay not what you gained? What you lost? Did you start censoring your feelings? Did you stop asking for what you needed because it felt like too much? Did you become smaller so the relationship could survive? That's not growth. That's erosion. Real love expands your sense of self. Toxic love demands a trade your self-respect for their comfort. And the most dangerous part, it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in tiny betrayals of yourself, so subtle you don't notice until you're exhausted and ashamed for wanting more. You tell yourself, I'm just being understanding. But understanding turns into tolerating. Tolerating turns into normalizing. And suddenly, the line between love and self-abandonment disappears. Let me be clear. Any relationship that requires you to disappear is not a relationship. It's a hostage situation. You don't lose yourself because you're dramatic. You lose yourself because you were trying to keep the peace at any cost. And here's the truth most people avoid. The moment you stop respecting yourself, resentment starts growing quietly. It shows up as numbness, as irritability, as a deep, aching loneliness, even when you're not alone. You can't love someone into treating you well. You can't sacrifice your dignity and expect intimacy in return. Love without respect is not devotion. It's self-neglect with a romantic story attached. And when you feel that pull to go back, ask yourself this: will I have to shrink again to belong? If the answer is yes, then belonging was never real. This is the turning point, because choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's the beginning of self-trust. We don't stay in toxic love because we don't see the truth. We stay because we tell ourselves stories that make the pain survivable. They're just wounded. If I love harder, they'll change. It's not abuse. It's just complicated. Let me say this with compassion and clarity explanations. Do not excuse harm. Understanding someone's trauma does not obligate you to endure their behavior. Empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. One of the most dangerous lies is this: they need me. No. They need accountability, and you are not a rehabilitation center for someone who refuses to heal. We romanticize loyalty. We praise endurance. We call suffering commitment. But love is not proven by how much pain you can tolerate. Love is proven by mutual care, consistency, and respect. Another lie: leaving means I failed. No. Leaving means you listened to the part of you that finally said enough. Failure is not walking away. Failure is staying so long that you forget who you were before the damage. And here's the one that keeps people trapped the longest: hope. Hope that this time will be different. Hope that the apology means change. Hope that love will eventually win. Hope becomes dangerous when it's no longer grounded in reality. Patterns tell the truth, not promises, not tears, not moments of tenderness after harm. If someone shows you who they are repeatedly, believe the behavior, not the story. This isn't about judgment. It's about discernment. You can love someone deeply and still choose to leave, because loving yourself has to matter more than believing another lie just to stay comfortable in the familiar pain. One of the strongest forces pulling you back isn't love. It's the terror of being alone with yourself. Toxic love convinces you that loneliness is the worst possible outcome, that silence is dangerous, that without them you'll be unlovable, forgotten, unfinished. But let me tell you something most people never hear. Loneliness inside a relationship is far more damaging than being alone. Being alone can feel empty. Being with someone who doesn't see you feels annihilating. When you leave, the noise stops. No chaos, no drama, no emotional whiplash. And in that quiet, all the feelings you postponed come rushing in: grief, anger, shame, relief you don't know what to do with. So your mind reaches for the familiar, even if the familiar was hurting you. That doesn't mean you need them. It means you haven't yet learned how to sit with yourself without distraction. And here's the truth: being alone is not the same as being abandoned. Being alone can be an act of deep self-rescue. You are not hard to love because someone couldn't love you well. You are not too much because someone refused to show up. Toxic love teaches you to fear solitude because solitude gives you clarity, and clarity is the enemy of staying. The space they leave behind, it's not a void. It's room. Room to hear your own voice again. Room to rebuild trust with yourself. Room to remember what it feels like to breathe without bracing for impact. You don't need to fill that space immediately. You need to honor it. Because the moment you stop running from being alone is the moment you stop running back to what hurts you. Before you had the words, your body already knew. The tight chest, the constant vigilance, the way your stomach dropped when their name appeared on your phone. That wasn't intuition being dramatic. That was your nervous system sounding the alarm. Toxic love lives in your body long before it makes sense in your head. You felt it in the exhaustion, in the headaches, in the way you couldn't fully relax. Even during the good moments, you learned to override those signals, to call them anxiety, to tell yourself you were overreacting. But here's the truth: your body does not lie. It responds to safety or threat, connection or danger. When love is real, your body softens, your breath deepens, your shoulders drop. When love is toxic, your body braces, always waiting, always preparing for the next emotional impact. And even now, after you've left, your body remembers. It reaches for what it knew, even if it was harmful. That doesn't mean you should go back. It means healing happens from the inside out. You don't need more proof. You don't need one last conversation. You don't need closure from the person who kept you unsafe. Your body already closed the door. Learning to trust yourself again starts here, listening to the discomfort without immediately trying to escape it. Calm may feel boring at first, peace may feel unfamiliar, but unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong, it means new. And when you honor what your body has been trying to tell you all along, you stop betraying yourself for the sake of staying connected to someone who never made you feel secure. This is how self-trust begins, not with certainty, but with listening. Let me clear something up. Boundaries are not ultimatums. They are not revenge. They are not a way to control someone else's behavior. Boundaries are what you put in place when love alone is no longer enough to keep you safe. Toxic relationships teach you that setting limits is cruel, that saying no will make you cold, selfish, or unloving. So you over-explain, you justify, you soften your needs until they disappear. But here's the truth. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always resist them. And that resistance, it's information. If someone only loves you when you are endlessly accommodating, they don't love you. They love access to you. Healthy people may feel disappointed by your boundaries. Toxic people feel threatened by them. And this is where many people go back, not because they want the relationship, but because they can't tolerate the guilt of protecting themselves. Let me say this clearly. You are allowed to choose yourself without explaining it to anyone. Silence can be a boundary. Distance can be a boundary. Not responding can be a boundary. You don't need to announce your healing. You don't need permission to walk away. Boundaries are not about changing them. They're about changing you, what you tolerate, what you engage with, what you return to. And when you hold that line, something powerful happens. You start to feel your strength again, your nervous system settles, your self-respect grows roots. Some people will fall away when you stop overgiving. Let them. Anyone who requires you to have no boundaries in order to stay was never offering you real love. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. At first, staying gone feels like loss, like something has been ripped away. But over time, something else happens. You start to recognize yourself again. Your thoughts get clearer. Your body relaxes. You stop rehearsing conversations that will never lead anywhere. And then comes the quiet realization, I don't miss who I was in that relationship. You miss the hope. You miss the fantasy. But you don't miss the version of yourself who was always bracing, bargaining, begging to be met halfway. When you stay gone, you reclaim your energy. You stop leaking yourself into someone who couldn't hold you with care. And here's what no one prepares you for. Your standards rise, not because you're demanding, but because you remember what peace feels like. You stop chasing intensity. You start valuing consistency. You stop mistaking emotional roller coasters for passion. You start craving steadiness, presence, truth. Staying gone changes your identity. You become someone who listens to discomfort instead of silencing it. Someone who trusts their own no. Someone who doesn't confuse longing with love. This is the part that scares people around you. Because when you heal, you stop being available for dysfunction, and some will try to pull you back with nostalgia, guilt, or sudden affection. But you know better now. You know that love doesn't require self-erasure. You know that safety isn't boring, it's sacred. Staying gone isn't about punishment, it's about alignment. Alignment with who you are becoming. Alignment with a life that doesn't demand you suffer to belong. And once you taste that alignment, going back doesn't feel romantic anymore. It feels impossible. We tell ourselves we need one last conversation, one final explanation, one moment where they finally understand the damage they caused. But here's the hard truth. Closure from someone who hurt you is a myth. If they had the capacity to give you clarity, they would have given it to you before you broke. Closure doesn't come from their words. It comes from your decision to stop asking someone else to validate your pain. Every time you reopen the door, you reopen the wound. Every time you engage, you hand them another chance to rewrite history. And toxic love is very good at rewriting history. They minimize. They deflect. They promise change without accountability. And suddenly, you're doubting yourself again. Let me say this clearly. You don't need their agreement to be done. You don't need their apology to move on. You don't need them to see you correctly in order to see yourself clearly. Freedom begins the moment you stop negotiating your reality. You know what happened. You know how it felt. You know what it cost you. That's enough. Closure is not an event. It's a boundary you hold when the questions come back. It's choosing not to respond, not to explain, not to re-enter the cycle, just to soothe discomfort. And yes, it can feel unfinished, but unfinished doesn't mean unhealthy. Some doors are meant to stay closed, not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand that your peace matters more than being understood by someone who never listened. This is where power lies, not in answers, but in acceptance. Let me leave you with this. Don't go back. Not because you're angry, not because you're trying to prove something, but because you finally know the cost. You know what it took from you. Your peace, your voice, your sense of safety. Going back won't heal that. It will reopen it. Toxic love doesn't become healthy just because time passes or feelings remain. Love that requires you to betray yourself is not love. It's a lesson. And you've already learned it. Choosing not to go back is not a failure of forgiveness. It's a declaration of self-respect. You can wish them well from a distance. You can hold compassion without offering access. You can love without returning. That's maturity. That's courage. One day, you'll look back and realize the bravest thing you ever did was resist the urge to return to what felt familiar and choose what felt honest instead. Peace will feel strange at first, then it will feel steady, then it will feel like home. And when the memory tries to romanticize the pain, remember this, you didn't leave because you stopped loving. You left because you started loving yourself enough to stay gone. So don't go back. There is nothing behind you that deserves the life waiting in front of you. Stay gone, stay whole, stay free.